Imagine standing in a place you were never meant to reach, not earth, not even the outer courts of heaven, deeper, where the light feels heavier, where even angels do not speak freely. And in that place, two voices are talking, low, controlled, careful, not worship, not praise, something else. Now imagine an angel hearing it, not by assignment, not by permission, by mistake. He freezes because he knows instantly this is not something he's allowed to hear. And yet, he doesn't leave. He listens, just long enough for the words to make sense. And the moment they do, the voices stop. Silence takes over the entire space. And then, every presence in that place becomes aware of him, not slowly, immediately, as if the secret itself just turned around and saw who was listening. That angel was Sahaqiel, and that moment was the beginning of something heaven had never faced before. Because Sahaqiel didn't fall like the others. He didn't rebel. He didn't choose darkness. He heard something he was never supposed to hear, and what he heard forced heaven to make a decision it had never made before. Should an angel be judged for knowing too much? Stay with me, because this story doesn't begin with rebellion. It begins with a secret, and by the time it ends, you'll understand why Sahaqiel was never meant to be remembered. Long before the moment he was discovered, before the silence, before the attention turned toward him, there was nothing remarkable about him. That was the problem, because in a place like heaven, where power is seen, where purpose is clear, where every being knows exactly why they exist, an unnoticed angel can go anywhere, and no one thinks to ask why. He was not among the highest, not among the ones who stood closest to the throne, where the light was almost too intense to endure. He was not a messenger, sent with urgency between heaven and earth. He was not a warrior, whose presence carried the weight of authority and command. He was something quieter, a watcher, not in title, but in nature. He moved where others didn't pay attention. He stood where conversations faded into the background. He passed through spaces where nothing important was supposed to happen. And because of that, he saw things, not secrets, not at first, just patterns. Moments where certain angels would lower their voices without reason. Places where the atmosphere felt tighter, more controlled. Conversations that ended too quickly when someone unexpected drew near. It wasn't enough to raise alarm, but it was enough to stay in his mind. Have you ever noticed something small, something that didn't make sense, and no matter how much you tried to ignore it, it stayed with you? That was how it started. Not with rebellion, not with disobedience, with a question. And questions have a way of leading you places you were never meant to go. At first, he ignored it. He did what he was meant to do. He stood where he was placed. He observed what he was allowed to see. He turned away when things were not meant for him, but the feeling didn't leave. If anything, it grew, slowly, quietly, like something pulling at the edge of his awareness. And over time, he began to do something subtle, something almost impossible to notice. He started paying attention, on purpose, not just seeing what passed in front of him, but choosing where to stand, choosing when to arrive, choosing when to remain, just a little longer than necessary. Never enough to be obvious, never enough to be questioned, but enough to hear more than he should. And each time it happened, each time a fragment of something reached him, he told himself the same thing. Just this once, just enough to understand. But understanding doesn't satisfy curiosity, it deepens it, because the more he heard, the less it made sense. And the less it made sense, the more he needed to know why. There were names mentioned that were never spoken anywhere else. There were pauses in conversations, like something was being left unsaid on purpose. And once, just once, he heard something that didn't belong at all. A phrase, short, quiet, but wrong. Not wrong like a mistake, wrong like it didn't fit into anything he understood about heaven. He didn't react. He didn't move, but something inside him shifted, because in that moment, he realized something he had never considered before. Not everything in heaven was meant to be known. And that realization should have been enough. It should have been the moment he stopped, the moment he stepped back, the moment he chose obedience over curiosity. But he didn't, and that's where everything changed. Because from that point on, he wasn't just observing anymore. He was looking, searching, positioning himself closer and closer to places he had no reason to be. Not recklessly, carefully, always within the edge of what could be explained. But every step he took brought him nearer to something hidden. And the strange part was, it didn't feel like he was getting closer by accident. It felt precise, like the path was already there, like all he had to do was follow it. And that thought, that quiet, unsettling thought, raised a question he didn't want to face. Was he discovering something that was hidden, or was something hidden, allowing itself to be discovered? Because there were moments, brief, almost impossible to explain, when it felt like the conversations didn't just stop because he arrived, but because they knew he had heard enough. Moments where the silence came too quickly, too cleanly, like it had been waiting for him, and still, he kept going. Let me ask you something. At what point does curiosity stop being harmless and start becoming a decision? Is it when you first notice something, or when you choose not to look away? Because by now, he had already crossed that line. He just didn't realize it yet. There was one place he had never gone, not because he wasn't allowed, but because no one ever needed to. A part of heaven where movement was rare, where even the atmosphere felt different. He had passed near it before, always at a distance, always turning away before getting too close. But now, that same quiet pull, that same unanswered question, drew him back. Stronger than before, he didn't rush, he didn't hesitate. He simply moved, as if the decision had already been made, step by step, closer than he had ever gone. And the closer he got, the quieter everything became, until finally, he reached the edge of it. And for the first time, he didn't turn away. He stepped in, and that was the moment everything began. Because just beyond that point, just a few steps further, were the voices, the ones he wasn't supposed to hear, the ones that would change everything, the ones we started with. And now you understand something important. That moment wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. He didn't just end up there. Every step he took, every choice he made, every time he chose to listen instead of leave, led him to that exact place at that exact moment. Which brings us to the question you can't ignore. Did he find the secret, or did the secret find him? Because in the next chapter, we're going back to that moment again. But this time, you're going to hear what he heard. And once you do, you'll understand why heaven could never ignore him again. The first thing he noticed was how quiet it was. Not the natural quiet of heaven, not the peaceful stillness that comes with order and harmony. This was different. This was controlled, like the silence itself had been placed there on purpose. He stood just inside the boundary, unmoving. Every instinct told him to step back, to leave, to pretend he had never come this far. But something stronger held him in place, the need to know. And then, he heard it, a voice, low, measured, careful in a way that didn't belong in a place where nothing needed to be hidden. He couldn't see who was speaking, not clearly. The light bent strangely in this part of heaven, distorting form and distance. But he knew they were close, closer than he expected. And then a second voice answered, quieter, but sharper, more certain. The kind of voice that doesn't ask questions, it confirms things. He didn't understand the words at first, not fully. They came in fragments, pieces that didn't fit together. Not yet. They're not ready. If it happens too soon, a pause and then something that made his attention sharpen. They must never know. He felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not yet. Recognition. Because whatever this was, It wasn't meant for everyone. It wasn't part of the order he had always known. And still, he stayed. He should have left, right there, before it went any further. But he didn't, because now he was close enough to understand. And understanding was only seconds away. The first voice spoke again. They believe everything is as it was designed. The second voice responded immediately. That belief must remain. A longer silence followed, not empty, heavy, like something unspoken had just passed between them. And then, the words that changed everything. If they ever see beyond what they've been given, a pause, the balance breaks. Balance. The word echoed in his mind, because balance meant something specific, something intentional, something maintained. And for the first time, a thought formed that he could not stop. What balance? Between what and what? He felt it again. That pull, that need to hear just a little more, just enough to understand what this meant. And then, one of the voices said something that made his entire being go still. They were not meant to question the design. Not meant to question, not allowed to know, not supposed to see. The pieces began to connect, slowly, uncomfortably, like something inside him was putting it together faster than he could process. And then, it happened. The moment everything made sense. Not in words, not in a clear explanation, but in a realization. Sudden, sharp, complete. There was more to heaven than what was seen, more to its order, more to its design, more than what even angels understood. And whatever this was, it was being kept that way on purpose. That was the moment, the exact moment, when understanding crossed the line. Because the instant it became clear, the voices stopped. Not gradually, not fading. Stopped. Like they had been cut off mid-existence. The silence that followed was immediate, heavy, absolute. And in that silence, he felt it. Attention, not turning toward him, locking onto him from every direction. He didn't move. He couldn't. Because in that instant, he realized something far worse than being discovered. He hadn't just heard something hidden. He had understood it. And whatever had been speaking knew that. The air around him tightened. Not physically, something deeper. Like the space itself had become aware. Watching, measuring, deciding. His mind raced. Leave. Don't think. Don't hesitate. Just move. But his body didn't respond. Because deep down, he already knew. It was too late. And then, for the first time, something shifted in the light ahead of him. Not fully visible, not clearly formed, but present. A shape within the brightness, watching him. And in that moment, a single thought hit him harder than anything else. He was not supposed to be here. Not just physically, but in knowledge, in awareness, in understanding. And that meant one thing. He had crossed a boundary that could not be uncrossed. Let me ask you something. What happens when you learn something you were never meant to understand? Do you forget it? Ignore it? Pretend it never happened? Or does it change you, whether you want it to or not? Because Sahaqiel didn't get the chance to decide. The moment he understood, the decision was already made for him. And in the next chapter, you're going to see what heaven does when one of its own knows too much. The light shifted, not gradually, not subtly, but with the force of a judgment descending. He felt it before he saw it, a presence so immense, so sharp, it sliced through thought like a blade. And then, the shape emerged. Not an angel as he knew them. Not one of the watchers. Something older, sharper, impossibly bright. Eyes like molten gold, piercing through the very marrow of his being. Sahaqiel froze. Every instinct screamed to bow, to kneel, to vanish into the light. But his legs were rooted. His mind raced, but his body did not respond. "You were not meant to hear this," the voice said. It wasn't angry, not yet. It wasn't scolding, not entirely. It was precise, cold, heavy with authority that pressed down on him from every direction. I, he began. You, the voice cut in, have trespassed on knowledge forbidden. You have seen what none of your kind should see, and yet you remain. A shiver crawled through him. Not fear exactly. Fear was too simple. This was deeper. Awareness. The weight of consequence pressing on him like a mountain. Then the impossible happened. The light coalesced into a form. A figure familiar yet terrifying. Sahaqiel recognized the lines of a face that should have been gentle, yet now burned with judgment. Wings of gold extended behind him, immense, stretching beyond the limits of Sahaqiel's vision. And eyes? Oh, those eyes. They did not merely see. They measured, they weighed, they dissected the very essence of his soul. You have crossed the boundary, the figure said, and in doing so, you have placed yourself in the line of the most perilous truth. Sahaqiel's throat tightened. Every pulse in his body screamed to run, to hide, to undo the impossible. But it was too late. What do you want from me? He whispered. Silence stretched, thick, heavy. Then the voice answered almost conversationally, yet every word shook him. Do you know why knowledge is dangerous? He swallowed, heart hammering. Because it can corrupt. A sharp movement of the golden hand. No, because some knowledge is not meant to be held by the unprepared. By seeing what you should not see, you have changed. Not merely in action, but in being. There is no returning to ignorance once it is seen. Sahaqiel staggered, feeling the truth of it. The words weren't just warning, they were reality. His mind, his heart, his very essence had been altered in that instant. The line he had crossed could not be erased. And yet, the voice continued, lowering slightly, I do not strike immediately. You intrigue me. Intrigue? He wanted to flee, to fall to the floor, to scream, but he only could stand. Every nerve screaming, every thought burning. You are like none of the others. You do not resist, and yet you do not cower. You do not revel, and yet you linger. That is dangerous. Another pause, a silence that felt like eternity. Then finally, follow me, you will see the consequences of what you have heard. You will understand the weight you now carry, and you will choose. The words cut deep. Choose what? The figure extended a hand. Not to punish, not yet, but to beckon. Sahaqiel knew in his core, stepping forward meant everything would change. One step, and he would no longer be the watcher who observed from the edge. One step, and he would be bound to a path he could never leave. He looked down at his own hands. They trembled. Trembled not with fear, but with anticipation and an unspoken understanding. Whatever awaited him, it was bigger than anything he had imagined. And as he lifted his foot, the light intensified. The air vibrated with a tension so thick, it felt like the sound of 1,000,000 hearts beating at once. And for the first time, Sahaqiel understood something terrifying. He had been chosen, not just for what he had seen, but for what he would do next. If you saw a truth so forbidden that even the most divine would fear it, what would you do? Hide, run, or step forward knowing there is no going back? Because Sahaqiel stepped forward, and that step set the stage for the betrayal that would shake heaven itself. In the next chapter, we will see the first act of his treachery and the moment his loyalty fractures. The air was thick with power, heavy enough to crush thought. Sahaqiel's wings trembled behind him as he followed the figure into a chamber that seemed to exist outside of heaven's light, a place between stars, between time itself. He could feel it before he saw it, the knowledge, forbidden knowledge, secrets whispered in shadows, hidden from angels, shielded even from the watchers. Knowledge that, if revealed, could unravel the order of everything. Heaven, earth, and the fragile thread between them. "You were not supposed to hear this," the figure said again. "And yet, you did. Now you will decide what to do with it." Sahaqiel's heart thundered. Every instinct screamed to turn, to retreat, to flee. But curiosity burned hotter than fear. The first secret revealed itself like a pulse of light, sharp and blinding. He saw the design of human destiny, the balance of life and death, the exact moment where choices would shape nations, where a single action could birth chaos or salvation. He should have looked away. He should have shut his mind, but he couldn't. And then came the darker visions. Angels who had fallen, plotting, waiting, twisting knowledge into power. Humans wielding tools and fire, and secrets they were not ready for. Wars that had not yet come, disasters that had not yet struck, all unfolding as if written in invisible ink across the fabric of time. Sahaqiel staggered. His mind screamed with the enormity of it, and yet the figure whispered one word that broke through his awe. "Remember." Remember what? The command was simple. Do not reveal. Do not intervene. Do not cross the line between observer and participant, the very same line the watchers had once debated on Hermon. And then the temptation began. He thought of humanity below, fragile, struggling, trembling under the weight of their ignorance. He thought of the children he had once healed in secret, the families who had been spared pain through the faintest touch of mercy. A whisper in his mind. You could help them. You could give them the knowledge to survive, to thrive, to be more than they are. But every fiber of his being knew the cost. Knowledge given too soon burns like wildfire, consuming innocence, corrupting the soul. He had seen it before. He had witnessed it. And yet, he stepped forward, not violently, not with arrogance, but with a trembling hand and a racing heart. He began to whisper. The secrets slipped, one by one, light spilling into the world it was never meant to touch. He taught humans the rhythms of the stars, the cycles of the moon, the hidden patterns of the earth. Gifts meant to save, but gifts that carried danger with every pulse. At first, the humans rejoiced. They praised the invisible teacher who guided them. They learned, they grew, they marveled. But Sahaqiel noticed the shadows, the first seed of corruption. A young man who had learned to read the stars began using that knowledge to dominate his neighbors. A boy who understood the patterns of water and fire twisted them into tools of destruction. The knowledge that had been meant as salvation now began to divide, to wound, to bring fear. Sahaqiel's chest ached. His hands shook. Every word, every secret felt like a blade carving through his soul. And yet, he could not stop. Why? Because once the line is crossed, once you see what you are not meant to see, you are no longer the same. You are complicit. You are changed. You are a traitor. And then it happened, the moment that would mark him forever. A voice, distant at first, then closer, sharper, like the crack of lightning in a quiet night. Sahaqiel! He froze, his name carrying weight beyond any punishment, echoing across the plains of existence. He knew who it was before he saw. Michael, Gabriel, watchers who had remained faithful. The eyes of heaven itself had found him, and in that instant, terror gripped him. Not for himself, not for the chains he would face, but for the humans, for the fragile world now teetering because of his choice. If you had a power so great that you could save lives, but every action carried unseen consequences, would you act, or would you watch, knowing the risk of betrayal? Sahaqiel chose to act, but the cost was not yet revealed. And that choice, the first act of defiance, the first moment of betrayal, would echo across heaven and earth. It would be remembered, whispered, feared. It would define him. The sky above the world quaked as if the very foundations of creation had been disturbed. Sahaqiel fell to his knees, wings trembling, heart pounding like a drum of war. The humans below were oblivious to the invisible storm, yet the air hummed with a power beyond their understanding. Every secret he had revealed, every forbidden truth he had whispered, now rippled outward like cracks in fragile ice. Then came the sound, a voice that could split mountains and silence the stars. The Creator himself spoke, not in anger, not in judgment, but in sorrow. Sahaqiel. It was not just a name, it was a sentence, a weight that pressed on his soul heavier than chains ever could. And yet, in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Sahaqiel understood. The chaos he had wrought was not the end. It was a test, a mirror reflecting the choices of angels and humans alike. Every act of betrayal, every misstep, was now an opportunity to show true courage, mercy, and wisdom. He rose slowly, his wings spread, catching a light that had not touched him in ages. Fear was still there, burning in his chest. Guilt clung to him like shadow. But so did clarity. He knew now that his role was not to dominate, not to control, not to perfect, but to guide, to protect, to bear the weight of his own mistakes as a warning and a shield for those who could not yet see the consequences of their choices. The tremors subsided. The world exhaled as if creation itself had been holding its breath. Heaven watched. The humans below continued their lives, unaware of how close they had come to tipping the balance between salvation and ruin. And Sahaqiel, he vanished into the night, no longer the spy, no longer merely a traitor, but a guardian, carrying the lessons of betrayal and mercy together. His story became a shadow in the history of angels, a warning, a testament, a reminder that even the brightest wings can falter, yet even fallen angels can rise. If you could see the consequences of every choice before you made it, would you act anyway? Would you risk being the one who trembles and yet becomes the protector? Because that is the story of Sahaqiel, the spy angel who discovered forbidden secrets and, in doing so, learned that even betrayal can lead to unexpected redemption.